You know, the 1970s were truly a great time. It was where you could fly from New York to London in 3 hours' time, going supersonic speeds aboard the Concorde. You could also cross the English Channel in record-breaking times aboard a hovercraft. It was home to the very iconic puzzle we know today as the Rubik's Cube. And one of my favorite parts of this decade was indeed the music. And one of the more iconic parts of this decade was the explosion on the Apollo 13 module, and these notable words were uttered.
This is Houston, say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
Yes, indeed. That really struck with me because I'm from Houston. Heck, the 1970s were the last time man walked on the moon. You know the word impossible
really doesn't exist. When you leave here and start school next fall, don't tell, but ask your teacher. Ask your teacher to take the word impossible out of your vocabulary, out of the dictionary. I went to the moon before your mom and dad probably were even in 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th grade. And some of your moms and dads I know wore diapers or knee pants when I went to the moon. That's how long.
Got to be one of the most proud moments of my life, I guarantee you. That's beautiful.
On February 20th, 1972, Richard Nixon arrives in the People's Republic of China for talks, taking the first steps in order to re-establish diplomatic relations between the United States of America and Communist China.
At that time, Taiwan and United States still have a very good relationship. They still exchanged the ambassador until 1979. So it's 7 years after Nixon visit mainland China. Then they recognize, I think it was Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, recognized mainland China, which is the Communist China, as only Chinese government and not Taiwan. So they cut off the relationship.
The United States recognizes the government of the People's Republic of China as a sole legal government of China.
The whole nation was, the people there were so disappointed. And even like the president of Taiwan, then called Jiang Jingbo, was informed in the midnight by the U.S. government that say, okay, we're going to end up the diplomatic tie, and we're going to go with China. So it is very unusual and sad thing happened to people in Taiwan.
And now here we are in the mid-70s. We've had a real questioning of our politics, of our leaders, of their practices, of who was following who and who was watching who. That became the critical question at the time. It went from a government policy of good old boys slowly being replaced by a lot of newcomers. We had Jimmy Carter as our president in '76, and he was the peanut farmer from Georgia, and nobody could figure out how he obtained the presidency, but of course now we all reflect upon what happened recently and think about how that may have been different 40 years ago. Well, on paper we stopped the combat in '73. We didn't have our last troops out of there to '75. So the drawdown was much more elaborate, and of course we left so much there, and then a lot of Americans were upset at all the wasted spending. We really stocked up big time for war in Southeast Asia, and we left it all there. When they boogied out of Vietnam, there are video clips of them simply pushing aircraft, particularly helicopters, off the vessels, make room for incoming helicopters with personnel. Just dumped them right in the ocean. And that was something caught on TV, and the American public was horrified to see that.
The year is 1974. My dad just arrived in Chicago from Hong Kong.
I remember when I first came to the U.S. from Hong Kong, I arrived. I flew into Chicago here International Airport when I was eight years old. And I remember my uncle came pick us up, and when I left the airport, I saw this big giant car. Normally in Hong Kong they have smaller cars, so I'm not used to seeing big cars, but it was a Cadillac Eldorado, 2-door coupe green with white leather interior, so it was a pretty big car.
At the time, environmental problems wasn't really a concern and cars were big. That was up until the oil embargo, where prices went from $3 to $12 a barrel.
It caused a surge in gasoline shortage around the country. Long lines throughout the country. People were accustomed to big gas guzzler car, and now people has to resort to smaller, more fuel efficiency car. So that time, the Japanese car makers such as Toyota, Datsun, and Honda, their business was booming because they were selling smaller, more fuel efficient cars, and the big three automakers weren't selling smaller cars, so they had to change their business plan. That's how the gas embargo actually affected the whole environment of automobiles in the 70s. Welcome to the 70s.